BT's Body and Balance is sponsored by Canada Diagnostics Ray and ultrasound services in Calgary and Okotoks.
Well, we tackle a very serious topic today. No question, teenagers experience big emotions. For some, those emotions can be just too much to handle. These young people can resort to damaging behaviors like cutting. Our health specialist Leah Sarich is here now with what self-harm is and what parents can do to help. It's really hard to even think about.
It's hard to think about, and it's much more common than we think. These statistics kind of frighten me. 10 to 20% of all teenagers will engage in some form of self-injury. And
goodness.
you know,
Wow.
Dr. Jericho, the psychiatrist that I interviewed, said that number is probably too low. She said it's probably even higher than that, yes, in her experience. But of course, some of them are just going to experiment with it. They'll just try it once or twice, see what it feels like. But some are going to engage in the behavior repeatedly, and this is quite dangerous. So self-harm is often associated with mental illnesses like depression and anxiety or conduct disorder. This is where the teen is engaging in behavior that they know is socially inappropriate or not normal, per se. So this cutting can be on the wrists or the arms, but it can also be in other parts of the body that are easy to hide, because this is of course a behavior they don't want out there. Cutting is the most common form of self-harm, but there's also things like burning and scratching. There's other things that they're doing. But the question, of course, is why? So why are they doing this? Why would a teen do this to themselves? And Dr. Jericho says it's all about finding a sense of relief.
There's an association between folks who cut and folks who are highly sensitive. So these are people who report feeling intense emotions, report also a lot of negative emotions, things like intense depression, overwhelming sadness. And so you can imagine somebody being flooded full of an emotion that they don't know what to do with and that they may not have the skills to manage. And so they discover the act of cutting. And what they tell us often is that when they cut, they're able to make sort of an abstract emotional problem into something concrete. It also provides them with something to do with that strong feeling.
Right, so it's all about those big emotions that are happening in the adolescent brain. Teens also report they feel empowered by cutting. Of course, it gives them something to do, or that they feel a sense of draining, so they're a relief and a release from that intense emotion. The behavior is often also associated with things like other risk-taking behaviors, drugs, alcohol, things like that. It really is the teen trying to manage this emotional distress. Parents don't usually find out about the behavior until it's been going on for a while, because the teen will often hide the cutting and this kind of business on their body. So when parents do find out about the cutting, it's of course very distressing and concerning for the parents, but Dr. Jericho says it's really important for the parents not to be too reactive or too angry about it, because she says, parents, you don't want to shut down this behavior right away. Of course you don't want it to carry on, but it's not about shutting it down, but instead it's not about being judgmental, but trying to understand why the teen is doing that.
What I would really advocate for is a curious stance and as non-judgmental a stance as possible. Because remember, oftentimes, and it's the norm in fact, the young person doesn't want to be doing this. They don't feel good about engaging in this behavior. But they're also oftentimes very anxious that this behavior is going to be taken away or prohibited without any kind of relief provided as a substitute.
So they need that substitute, particularly at the beginning, and this is where getting the teens some help comes in. So they need substitutes for that self-harm behavior in a more appropriate sort of way. So once they see someone like a counselor or a psychologist, there's a few things they can do instead. For example, some things like putting an elastic band on your wrist and snapping that elastic, or just getting rid of that emotion maybe through a sad song or a scary movie, things like that. So that's what they need to really think about. The other thing is about teaching the teen how to regulate the peaks and valleys of those big emotions, right? Just to try to sort of narrow things down a little bit. Dr. Jericho also recommends parents set some rules and boundaries about safety, because the children that do this behavior, they are also at higher risk of suicide. So that's something to keep in mind. But Dr. Jericho says most family doctors know about this behavior because, of course, it is so common. So that's a really good place to start. Also a good place to start for help, access mental health. And of course, all those numbers and links are on my blog.
Okay, breakfasttelevision.ca. Very quickly, Leah, before we let you go, next week you have a series that people are going to want to pay attention to.
Yeah, so this is called Talk to the Doc, and it's all about what you should talk to your doctor about at what age. So we'll go through the whole week, and we'll go really through the whole lifespan of a patient should be talking to their doctor about. So tune in all week long.
All very pertinent information. Thank you for that, Leah. And checking